hope so. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Didat. I must congratulate you, Mr. Chairman, for the calm way in which you've conducted the meeting this evening. I'm not going to accord the same grace to Mr. Didat. And that is the question I want to ask him. Obviously, I'm not of his faith, and he knows me. Mr. Didat, what I would like to ask you is, you pointed out to us that in the Quran, it says that Allah is loving. What does Allah require of his servants? What does Allah require of his servants? If he is a loving being, what does he require of his servants?
What he requires from us, from all, is to believe in him and follow his commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. Listen to God, believe in God, and keep his commandments. This is what he requires of you. You do that, he loves you, and he will reward you. You disobey, you pay the price.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does in a way. I'll continue if I can, seeing as I'm the last one. Perhaps you give me the license. In the Quran as well, it says that Jesus Christ is a prophet. So you admit to the existence of Jesus Christ.
What is your question?
All right. You admit to the...
So what is your question? Because now, what you are carrying on now, like in a court of law, you are not interrogating me as a public prosecutor. No. What is your question?
I hope I'm not that.
Your question.
No.
Your question. Come to the conclusion of what you have in mind.
My question is that Jesus Christ in John chapter 15 tells us that he gives all people a commandment, especially those who follow him, that they love one another as he has loved them. Why? Because he laid down his life for them while they were yet sinners. Now, that is the same love, I believe, that you are telling me that Allah is talking about. Therefore, if you are going to show love towards us, and I mean, you said there was 1.8 billion Christians who don't agree with you. If you were going to show that same love towards us, who are not of the same persuasion of you, why are you antagonistic? Why don't you show that characteristic of love towards these people, hoping to convince them of their error?
Jesus Christ is described to be the most loving person on earth. He is supposed to be the Lamb of God, meek and humble. Well, listen to him. You generation of vipers, you brood of snakes, you hypocrites, you wicked and adulterous generation, you fools, you whited sepulchres. You tell me.
Who was he talking about?
He's talking about his people.
That's right.
The elders of his people.
The scribes and the Pharisees.
So in other words, now if this was fitting for Jesus Christ, I never used any such language at all. Whatever I said tonight was more insipid than what Jesus had said. And despite the stupendous contrast between the language used by Jesus and me, you still say Jesus is the meek, humble Lamb of God. You still say that. He said, on his march on Jerusalem, if you remember, he said, for those my enemies who would not, that I should reign over them, bring them hither and slay them before me, cut their throats. Did he say that? Did he go and beat people in the temple? Did I do any such thing? Look, I'm only speaking, I'm trying to reason. And it's a natural thing that if the thing goes against the grain, it makes a noise.
The tongue.
It's going against the grain.
I'm allowed one more just comment on what he said. Right. You know, the one thing I would like to say is, when Jesus Christ castigated the scribes and the Pharisees, the result was that they became totally estranged from him. I'm saying your attitude tonight has perhaps done the same. Thank you.
This is an appropriate point or moment at which to end our gathering. Mr. Didat, you have obviously done extensive research. Clearly, you're a man of education. So, I thank you on behalf of all present for sharing your interpretation, your knowledge and experience with us. All those who asked questions, thank you for asking those questions. They were indeed interesting. And lastly, to the audience, thank you for attending. Peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum.